Are the fees to buy a home more costly now? Let's dive into the 2024 National Association of Realtors Real Estate Settlement. As a 20-year real estate veteran in the Detroit, Michigan market, I will break down the facts, the misunderstandings, and the misinformation, and what is happening in practice in this video explainer. In order to give you all of the information, let's get in the Wayback Machine and go back to the real estate industry in the 1980s. Prior to that, real estate agents did not represent buyers. A buyer would come to a listing agent who represented the seller, unrepresented, to buy a home. There was no such thing as an agent working for and advocating for a buyer at this time. As a buyer's agent, this is the essential knowledge that I am bringing to the transaction and the process. I am preparing you to become a buyer in today's market with an in-depth consultation about the best financing, what to expect in the process, and how to write competitive offers. I have connections to mortgage companies, insurance companies, home inspectors, contractors, and other home specialists. I will show you homes that fit your criteria on your schedule and find you homes not on the market. You will have access to all of my technology, such as the listings in the multi-list service, which is more accurate than Zillow, the showing software that we will use to track our appointments, and the contract software that we use to quickly sign contracts in the field. I will point out the conditions of the home that could influence your offer and point out things that you should talk to your home inspector about. I will research properties for you to obtain information that would help you make a purchasing decision. I will write an offer that works for you with all of the points of negotiation, considering market data, pricing, and property competition. We will go through all of the contract documents together to help you know what you are signing. I will provide you all of my support for inspections and knowing how to address any issue that came up during the inspection and how to negotiate with the seller after the inspection. I know how to deal with issues related to appraisals and loan approvals and how to renegotiate the contract should these things come up. I will help keep the closing timeline. I will get you to closing without a hitch. I will protect your earnest money along the way, and I will be highly responsible in the process to make sure you feel fully supported along the way. I will deal with utility transfers and final water bills, post-closing occupancy, and filing documents with the city assessor. Could you do this without an agent? Many buyers that try to go it alone end up feeling unhappy in the process. As buyer agency became more common in the 80s and 90s, the listing agents would offer some of the commission they negotiated with their client, the seller, to the buyer's agent for any buyer agent that brought a buyer to buy the home. The commission that the listing agent offered the buyer agent was advertised in the MLS. It's a compilation of every property that is on the market and every property that has sold in our market. So even though the listing agent was sharing their commission with the buyer's agent, technically it was coming out of the seller proceeds. Now let's fast forward to recent history. Coming out of the post-COVID real estate market, the real estate industry exploded, and prices increasing in the Michigan market by up to 30% in some areas. Sellers saw the commission that real estate agents were making, and because the good ones make it look easy and the bad ones don't deserve to be paid, sellers started looking at their bottom line, their money they were walking away from the closing with, and saying, why am I paying a buyer's agent? Since the commission that a listing agent offered a buyer's agent is advertised on the MLS, these sellers figured that if they did not want to offer any buyer agent commission, that they would be punished because buyer agents wouldn't want to show their properties because they likely wouldn't get paid. So these sellers sued, and there was a massive class action lawsuit of about a settlement of $418 million. And the people who made out best were the attorneys, because in a class action lawsuit, that's always who makes out. However, here is the outcome of the lawsuit that directly affects you as the buyer. 1, you have to sign a buyer agency agreement before you see a house. The buyer agency agreement details how much it costs you to work with the buyer agent. The contract also states that any commission received from the seller is credited towards the total amount that you owe your buyer agent for a successful sale. You the buyer, would be responsible to pay the difference at closing. If the amount that you had to pay your buyer agent was more than you had in available cash as far as your budget for a home purchase, and the seller did not agree to cover the full amount that you owe your agent, well, then you just don't buy that house. Also, there is an option to sign a buyer agency agreement for just one property or for a pretty short period of time, let's say a couple weeks or a month. That way, you can make sure that you really like the person that you're working with and that you don't feel forced into a contract with somebody that just responded to when you clicked a button on Zillow. Now, I would recommend that you do search for an agent that you can trust and that you feel has your best interest at heart so that you can sign an extended buyer agency agreement so that they can get to know you, best understand you, and have the time and opportunity to help you find the perfect property. You are allowed to have a listing agent, somebody who represents a seller, show you a property without a contract, because you would be an unrepresented buyer in that case. And you can also attend open houses without a contract. And the second outcome that affects you as part of this process, when you make your offer, you have to, in the purchase agreement, ask the seller to pay your agent a certain amount of commission, the amount of commission that you've agreed to pay your agent, or possibly less, but definitely not more. Prior to the lawsuit, that amount was already in the MLS, and the MLS was considered a contract. So if the listing agent said, I'm going to pay X amount, that's usually how much the buyer agent expected to get paid. Now, your agent can call the listing agent to ask how much commission that they are paying. They just can't advertise it in the MLS anymore. So this is what is happening in practice. Buyers are signing agency agreements at a certain amount, which is negotiable and always has been. Some agents, buyer's agents, are calling listing agents to find out how much they're offering in commission. Other agents are just sending in offers with a request to be paid a commission equal to the amount that the buyer has agreed to pay them. The commission becomes a point of negotiation, just like the price, the number of days in an inspection, and the deposit amount. In my experience since August, I have been paid by the seller my full commission in all circumstances, except one time, and it was a fraction of a percent. The buyer has only been required to pay the difference of commission once in that case, and they knew upfront as part of their offer, so they knew exactly what their costs were going to be. It's never going to be a surprise. You aren't going to find out the day of closing that you owe extra commission. It is written into the offer up front. I hope that shed some light on the real estate lawsuit of 2024 with the National Association of Realtors, and that you feel empowered as a buyer to understand how things have changed and how they haven't. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to leave me a comment or send me an email. I look forward to hearing from you.